se dobro slika, slobodno pošto imamo klip.
Okay.
Aha, ovdje on.
So, je profesor Čedo prvi govori? Da. Da, njegova prezentacija je upaljena.
Okay.
A kad završi...
Okay. So can I have a seat on the throne? Thank you.
Can I take this?
Be near the microphone. Yeah, you can take it.
Here, in front of the screen, so that you can see your own presentation.
Excellent, thank you.
Može, naravno.
If you prefer the big chair, seriously, no joke, you can take that one.
I think this is comfortable now.
Okay.
I'm still vice dean. When I become dean, then I'm...
Samo da vas ja prvo predstavim sve. I will not repeat your biography since we have heard it. There is no need to...
Absolutely, okay.
Okay. So, dear all of you who have survived the lunch, welcome again to this actually ballroom. This was supposed to be a ballroom for a very rich daughter of the richest Serbian ever, who was supposed to marry a king, but that didn't come to realization. Therefore, we have the thrones and everything else to enjoy while we have gatherings like this. I will shortly present the professors that we have on our first panel today, and the title of the panel is Green and Blue, the Basis for a Sustainable City. We are very happy and honored to have here Professor Čedo Maksimović from the Imperial College of London, Professor Vinicius de Carvalho from King's College of London, and our own Vice Rector, Professor Ratko Ristić from the University of Belgrade. Let me just introduce you shortly, Professors Maksimović and Ristić, since we have had the opportunity to hear more about Professor Carvalho's work. Professor Čedo Maksimović graduated from the Department of Hydrotechnics, Water and Environmental Engineering at the Faculty of Civil Engineering in Belgrade in 1971. At the same faculty, he got an MSc degree and doctorate. A part of the PhD research was conducted at Cambridge and Newcastle University in the UK. From 1971 to 1996, he worked at the Faculty of Civil Engineering in Belgrade on the subject of fluid mechanics, and he was also the Vice Dean of the faculty and the manager of the Institute of Hydraulic Engineering. During his work at the Faculty of Civil Engineering in Belgrade, he was the head of the International Research Center for Urban Water under the auspices at UNESCO. At the Imperial College in London, he founded and led the UWRG Urban Water Research Group and launched the publication of the Urban Water Journal and the Urban Water book series, publisher Taylor and Francis, of which is still the main editor, co-editor-in-chief. As one of the world's leading experts in the field of urban water, he made a key contribution to UW becoming a new scientific discipline, first in the UK and Europe, and then elsewhere. Leading French University of Construction, ENPC, École Nationale des Ponts et Chaussées, in Paris, 2017 promoted him as honorary doctor. He was also president of the European section of the International Hydraulic Research Association, and he has published 360 works in international journals and scientific meetings in the country and in the world, and is also the author, co-author, and editor of 43 books that include textbooks. Professor Ratko Ristić, Vice Rector of the University of Belgrade, is a full professor and, as I have said, Vice Rector, and he initiated the establishment of the Environmental Protection Committee at the University of Belgrade, of which he is member and president since last year. He was elected as a member of the Man and the Environment Board of the Serbian Academy of Sciences and Arts. He was the winner of 2 awards for environment protection in 2018 and 19. From 2011 to 2017, he was a member of the Supervisory Board of the Innovation Fund of Serbia and a member of the Management Board of the Institute for Nuclear Sciences, Vinča. In 2017, he was appointed representative of Serbia in the UNCCD, United Nations Convention Combat Desertification Committee on Science and Technology. From 2020 to 2022, he was the vice chair and the rapporteur of the board CST UNCCID. Dr. Ratko Ristić was born, should I read your biography also? Not necessarily. He's very young and still in his prime, as we also hear for the sportsmen, but he's, maybe some of you have heard, from the area of Serbia which may be in particular environmental crisis regarding some international companies and lithium challenge. However, Professor has graduated from the Department of Water Resources Management in erosive regions of the University of Belgrade Faculty of Forestry, and defended his Master of Science thesis some 30 years ago. He also defended his doctoral dissertation in 2000, and since March 1990, he has been employed at his alma mater Faculty of Forestry as an assistant trainee at the time. He worked in the Water Management Organization of Belgrade as a designer collaborator, and at the Belgrade Research Station, he is a member of the IHSS, which is the International Association of Hydrological Sciences, and World Association for Soil and Water Conservation, and also Serbian Chamber of Engineers, and also Association of Spatial Planners of Serbia. So far, he has published over 152 bibliographic units dealing with erosion and torrent control, hydrology, sustainable use of watersheds, and natural disasters prevention. I'm trying to point out these extraordinary professional biographies of our speakers so that you can know that not often, especially students, will have the chance to have such speakers in front of you. So you have heard of Professor Carvalho's biography, as I have said. Now I will ask Professor Maksimovic to open the panel, maybe trying to Professor somehow, shall we say, narrow the question, if possible, on the beginning, and you will have your chances to ask questions about the cities and areas of constant influx of population and therefore additional urbanization of already built-up areas. So the issue of sustainable water supply and wastewater treatment areas. What are the advanced world and European experiences in comparison with average developed and underdeveloped countries. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I will try to explain the philosophy, not climate change as just generic topic, but how we really can deal with it and how we can reduce negative impacts of the natural causes and human impact, anthropogenic, what we call impacts. I will concentrate mainly on the research of my research group at Imperial, although a lot of contribution in that research has been done by the people also from Serbia, from University of Belgrade, which I constantly collaborate with and involve in these projects. So the picture you see here is a picture of a city which differs from what you usually see. Interaction of blue component, which is water, and asset based on water, and the green infrastructure, which is not only trees, nice and beautiful, but trees have many other functions, and we plant the trees. We don't plant any tree anywhere. We look which tree goes where and what functions it can perform. So, as introduced in the beginning, these are some major areas of assets or legacy which I've done with. I have this Urban Water Journal, which is still active, and you can publish in it. It is on the World SC list. And then Urban Water Book Series. You can also, if you have an interesting book, you can publish in that series. But the lowest line is the list of projects, European and British and international, which I have kind of contemplated, managed, and in the end, you have this project called Blue-Green Dream, which is about the interactions of the blue assets and green assets in urban areas, and Rain Gain about the short-term prediction of rain and predicting floods and the droughts in the urban areas in order to combat the negative impacts of climate change. And these two projects, F-Polis and Heartis, F comes from the Greek words EU, not European Union, but nice cities or cities of well-being. And these two last projects are dealing with the innovative planning of cities so that they have positive impact on people's health, cardiovascular, respiratory, mental health, by using nature-based solutions, trees and other elements. So this paradigm of this project is that we can employ this green and blue infrastructure to make better microclimate conditions, and that we can then use this microclimate to improve people's health. So this is then explained for how it works. For the activities in these projects, my group won some awards in London, and these are the left-hand side one on the blue-green technology, and the right-hand side, innovative wastewater treatment technology. It's pity that the ministers have left. There is an excellent wastewater treatment technology, which is much smaller, much cheaper, much more energy efficient than the conventional. However, Serbia has opted for the outdated, much bigger, much smelly, dirty, and so on. And unfortunately, that has not changed despite the efforts from our side. I will explain the history, and I've mentioned some names here. These are the ladies who work with me as urban planners about the demo sites which we are developing in Belgrade near Zemunski K, and we are developing eco-educational center there, and mini eco-education center at the Linear Park at the along Danube. The blue-green solutions, what we call, are kind of not invented, but put together and synergy quantified in the Blue-Green Dream project in such a way that when we are dealing with climate change, we are not just talking in principle, it's dangerous, we should do something. We are doing this something in terms of the reducing flood risk, reducing noise level, improving air quality, improving the energy efficiency of buildings, reducing negative impacts on the biodiversity, and all these little icons, including the impact on the people's health and collaboration with the ordinary people, stakeholders, buildings, and so on. I will try to quantify this. And there is a myth that is a wrong perception that green infrastructure is something you put the money and forget about it. No, green infrastructure, we took this presentation today, is an excellent canvas for young people to develop their small companies, startups, new businesses for the next generation to come. And I have some excellent examples of my former students. I have supervised 157 master students and 27 PhDs. And this summer I have 7 new master students to supervise. Some of them are already running big businesses based on what they have done in their master projects and so on. So this is an opportunity for these people who are attending this meeting to see. This is Imperial College. As you can see, it's a small campus. And in 2-3 years, it should look much different. It is now finally, after 10 years, accepting our idea to become an open-air blue-green laboratory. So all these, most of these buildings and so on will be look different in let's say 3-4 years. The tower you see in the building, and right to the tower is my office. So if you are in London, you can easily find the tower, and you can find me in my office. Usually, leaving the office half an hour before midnight, because that's the time when the park closes and I cannot walk my home. So you can find me there if you, and you are welcome to come to London. So why we need these blue-green solutions? First of all, current methodology, planning city is mismatching the needs. Modern cities have different needs than what the planners are doing now. So we need that is suboptimal design resulting in the underperformance of the infrastructure. That's we need new opportunities, new improving sustainability, climate resilience, cost efficiency, and we need blue-green approach, and this is what we have. You have a publication, you can download it and have an animated film how to do it. This is an excellent example how things should not be designed. This is a business area near Canary Wharf in London, and the designers did extremely wrong design. Green roof is they painted concrete in green color at the roof, and they planted trees on the opposite side of the street, not on the other side, to protect the facades, and so on. So many different stupid things that when we mentioned to them, I said, it's too late, too late. It has to go. It's not too late. You can better change the project than make stupid. So the idea here is on the left-hand side, you see all these problems caused by climate change. If you have too much water causing floods, Zemun was flooded just a few months ago, Voždovac and so on. And if you have not enough water, then the trees are dying. In Australia, they had several years of dry years, and many parks have disappeared because trees have died. In California, the priority is now drinking water, and water save the trees rather than wheat. Wheat will, next year, will have better water, but trees have to have enough water to survive. And that all these, so this, on the left-hand side, you see the problems. We don't see them as a problem. We see challenges to improve the environment and create new job opportunities for young, enthusiastic people. And that's why I'm here, accepted with pleasure invitation to give this talk. On the left-hand side, you see how the people do this design. People, different specialties, architects, planners, energy people, environment, they work in their silos and solving one problem, creating another. Our philosophy is we have to sit together and develop a framework, and then once you develop a framework, then everybody can be creative. Architects be very creative, but within the framework to produce better environmental, microclimate, and climate resilient cities. And at this picture, it's a little bit busy. I'm not going to explain every details, but just at the bottom, you see history, how at least in water sector, this philosophy is changing. Every 3-5 years, there comes new ideas and develops new technologies, and then we adopt this philosophy, implement it until the last this big circle is the blue-green solutions, of which I'm going to say a few more words, and that is the philosophy of this innovative future city planning, bringing these two components together. After Professor Carvalho's excellent presentation about the Amazon and Manaus, and then that gives an idea, even in Manaus, it is applicable, although it's completely different climate. So we are not talking about the climate change in general. You have to reduce flood risk. When it's heavy rain, we have to do something to prevent flooding of cities, and then not only building big, what you call gray structures, dams, pipes, and so on, but also you can store water on different places on the roof, on the park, and so on. Use the water for toilet flushing, for irrigation, and so on. So rainwater is a new resource. We don't just collect it and throw it away. And this is an example. These also examples in each house. We take a shower. there is some hot water energy, you use that energy, and then recycle all these elements so that even at the level of house and individual group of houses, you can do a lot by resource management and reducing risk of climate change. It is climate change risk is reduction by the integrated effect of small changes all over the place. And this is example how it should be done. Trees are not just there to be beautiful and green. Trees have many other functions, about 30 different functions, and you choose which tree and where. For example, this tree here is used for evaporative cooling. It evaporates and creates cold air. You can put this cold air as a new resource and reduce temperature around houses, around restaurants, cafe. And we have examples where the temperature in the cafe in the open street is 10 degrees lower than 50 meters away in the street. Just with your proper trees irrigating and forcing or enhancing evaporation. Also, biodiversity, many other nice creatures in the cities can survive if we provide them. So the concept, all these elements, architecture, planning, we are not just solving one problem. We look how they interact, and instead of solving problems, we are actually optimizing interactions between these infrastructure, and that is how this optimization between different interactions is providing climate resilient solutions in the cities. And that is done by modeling, quantifying, by addressing health and transport and ecosystem services, wastewater management. And I am now involved in preparing a big regional project for Herzegovina, Trebinje villages, putting all this together into cleaning the environment and developing new next generation economical activities, energy, medicine, eco-medicine, food production, environment, and so on. And that is a new area of young, enthusiastic people. If I were your age, only 60 years younger, I would opt for developing business companies in this area. This is an area of the future. So we have heard this morning excellent presentation of our senior colleague from Israel. So we are here to help you to select topics, to determine which areas, which combination you can develop new businesses, avoid what you call death value. You create a company and then after 2 years it dies because there is improper preparation. And then what support you can expect from the people who have been using wrong shampoo and the color has changed of the hair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Maksimovic. So let's save the question about water waste for later. Now we will hear a lecture from Professor Vinicius, and maybe to just point out to you that you can write down or you can forward your questions for later, because I believe that I already have some of them. We can have a very strong discussion here. Professor? I don't think so. We need technical support. Okay.
That's okay. That's Pano Belgrade. Yep. Excellent. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you very much again. There you are. You need to tolerate me the second time today. Yeah? I hope that we can survive after that. Let's wait. If I will be invited next time, no, depending on this performance here. We are now traveling from the Amazonian, that was the morning talk, to Rio de Janeiro, a city, one of the biggest in Brazil that you may have seen a lot on the news. I am sure that you have quite a lot of images about Rio de Janeiro. No? Remember the Christ, the Redeemer, Copacabana Beach, wonderful beach, one of the most beautiful in the world. Good mountains, also Carnival, yeah, samba and Carnival, very good. I am very familiar with the city where I spent many years actually, and also with the problems of this city. And some of those problems we also see a lot on the news, especially relating to drug trafficking, urban violence, and etc. And we mainly don't talk too much about this, this aspect of, let's say, the ecosystem that allow the city to be what it is. And when I talk about ecosystem here, it's quite in line with my colleague just said here before. You're not talking about only climate, but people involved in this. How the human interaction create this climate challenge, I will put in these terms. And, well, Latin America is a very peculiar part of the world because despite being depicted as a region in development for quite a long time, it's also one of the regions with the highest urban development in the planet. Most of the capitals are over 4 million, 5 million people in Latin America. In case of Brazil, we have 27 capitals because of federation state. All of them are over 1 million. Just São Paulo, that you know also well, it's the great São Paulo, is about 30 million people living there. So we can imagine how much liters of water we need every day just for these people to drink. We're not talking about the other uses of this water. Rio de Janeiro with 6 million people living there. And one big problem, so-called problem, that is what is called the suborganized urbanization spaces, or they call it favelas, that you may have seen in many films and in other media references. Curiously, it's not something new. I was just looking at the literature, and I got to include Lévi-Strauss, the French anthropologist who spent the beginning of his career in Brazil, and he wrote Triste Tropique in Brazil. And when he comments about Rio de Janeiro, he says, the urbanists may have resolved the problem by now, but in 1935, the altimeter was also an unfailing index of social position. The higher you lived, the less important you were. Poverty perched on the hilltops, where the black population lived in ranks. Only at carnival time would they come swarming down into the city proper, there to sweep all before them with the tunes that they picked out on high on their guitars. A very romantic view about life in the favelas, but calling that a problem. Oh. Yeah, favelas mostly they are in hills of Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro is this crazy combination of a fantastic sea, but less than 1 kilometer we start to having mountains already. You know? Another famous author that back in the beginning of the 20th century went to Brazil was Stefan Zweig, who moved to Brazil to escape the Nazi atrocities and actually ended up killing himself after a carnival, not because of the carnival, in the Petrópolis, in the near of Rio de Janeiro. But one thing he wrote in his book called Brazil, the Land of the Future, is the name of his book about Brazil. He wrote a few things which might be gone tomorrow. And he said, several of the unique things which made Rio so colorful and picturesque are actually in danger of passing, especially the favelas. And the word that is used here, it's not a word that we use anymore, but it was in the original there, and the translation of this, of 1941. They called the favelas the Negro villages, in the middle of the town. Will they still be there into a few years' time? The Brazilians do not like to hear them mentioned, and in a social and hygienic sense, they are certainly very much behind the times in the center of a city shining with cleanliness, and one which, with its exemplary public service, has, in 2 decades, entirely eradicated the endemic yellow fever which used to reign in Rio. But there is no doubt that, and then they continue to talk about how beautiful it is, and then says, the water, for instance, has to be carried up the steep path from the wheel, nor has electricity reached as far as these huts. In the evening, one sees their kerosene lamps flickering between the bushes. And I call this quotation exactly because this idea of the water not being there. But yeah, the point as I'm bringing this is that's a picture of one of those regions in Rio de Janeiro. You know, it's called Vila da Penha, Penha Village. This big church, when you land in Rio de Janeiro airport, is the first thing you see. It's a big hill there with this church on the top. Now the airport, it's not far from here. We are looking at the interior of the city. That's a picture from 1950. I think there is the date here, but I can't see the date, but it's 35. I can't, yeah, 35. Exactly the period that Lévi-Strauss was writing about. So the same perspective, so no problem. The same perspective is this one that you have here. Yeah, that is 2 years ago. That's a picture from the same area. What I want to call your attention with that is that the process of urban acceleration here, and which impacts that has and which are the results of this climate change for the region as a whole. So what we are talking here is an area that's probably about 300,000 people living just in this small space here. It's always described by politicians as a problematic area, as an area of diseases. Some social scientists in the past used to call that the cancer of the cities, as something to be extirpated. But they are a result of a process of urbanization. They are a result of a process of constructing society. So we cannot detach the human engagement when we talk about that. In my lifetime, I have seen thousands of policies to urbanize the favelas, and with this terminology, to make them urban as they were not yet, or trying to project then a sort of ideal urban space that would perfectly fit into the plans that are coming from the urbanists sitting on the mayor office. Not taking into consideration the dynamics of this life inside there. As you know already, I like maps. So this is a map of the vegetal covering of Rio de Janeiro state. Now this all area is Rio de Janeiro state, and what you see just on this point, oops, let's see if you can have lights here. Okay, yeah, that's the city of Rio de Janeiro. And this area here is exactly the one that I pointed in the picture to you. That's the island where we have Rio Airport, and that is this favela, this slum that I showed the picture to you. So this shows very much how the density, the occupation of this area, it impacts a lot. And what's the impact that it causes here? There is no vegetal covering anymore in this region. Consequently, the cycles of natural water that we have here are impacted profoundly. This uncontrolled urbanization drives into extremely tropical storms that don't have, the land is not prepared to absorb this water anymore, and is washing down those hills, and this water is coming and being wasted because they just went full of trash to the ocean, and then we contaminate also the closest ocean of the area, making impossible to have life. This part of Rio de Janeiro, this Guanabara Bay, where is inside that uncle there, it's almost considered a dead sea because of pollution that's resulting of the misuse of this land here. What is also interesting is when you look at temperature, that's a hot map of temperature of Rio de Janeiro, a standard one, no precision of daytime or period of year. That's just an average of temperature of the city of Rio de Janeiro. It's the same area that you have the highest temperature of the city as well. So what I'm trying to see here is that there is also an ecosystem of this degradation of the urban space. And this ecosystem, we should ask, is provoked by the human action, or human actions are being victim of it, or both. Another interesting aspect is when you connect with vulnerability, and that's a principle that has been discussed in Rio de Janeiro quite regularly now. Thinking about vulnerability not only in terms of violence, social violence, but vulnerability to diseases, vulnerability because of education, vulnerability on food access, etc. And this is exactly also the region with the highest vulnerability in the state of Rio de Janeiro and in the city of Rio de Janeiro. Also, an area with the highest incidence of police violence in the region as well. So I'm coming to the end of my short talk here about that to bring this discussion. When we talk about green and blue cities, and when we think about how we can in some way regain this space as a space of integration, of the human integration and relationship with nature, we need to take into consideration these processes of occupation of the public space, this disordered occupation of public space. And when we compare that with the Amazonian, most of the urban areas are also the areas that are inflicting more damage to the nature as well in the region. So what we are seeing is, and I don't want to finish in a pessimist mode, but what I'm seeing is that with this growing push for the urban development in cities in Latin America in general, we are missing here lots of opportunities that the professor said before, to build up cities that will be integrated to the ecosystem where they are, but most cleverly and most oriented in order to prevent and to preserve the sort of problems that we see there. Curiously speaking as well, I'm talking about Rio de Janeiro, but I think we can apply that for many other capitals and cities around the world, and I really hope that's not the case here in Belgrade yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Carvalho. Now we will kindly ask Professor Ristic, Vice Rector, to speak to us. For those of you who are not from Serbia, Professor Ristic has been one of the most wanted media, how should we say that, performers lately, and also on public conversations about environment in Serbia, because we did have a few very serious situations when it comes to preserving our natural resources. But we will talk about that throughout Q&A later. Professor.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Maybe I should be more popular with better hairstyle. I would like to say that the global ecosystem is in danger. On the basis of the world assessment prepared by International Panel on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, we already have about 70% of the global wetlands completely destroyed. About 40% of land ecosystems are extremely altered and endangered, and more than 1 million species are under the threat of extinction. We have very turbulent manifestations of climate changes all around the world, and also very important, the problem of world hunger. What does it mean? At the moment, across the globe, about 828 million people do not have enough food. Nearly 43.3 million people are at serious risk of famine in parts of Yemen, South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. In the same time, military budgets in the world overcame 2,000 billion US dollars. It's data for 2021. After the war in Ukraine, the amount is probably the higher. If we want to solve the hunger problem on the global level, it is necessary 40 billion US dollars per year. So, we spend more than 2,000 billion years per year, and only 40 billion is necessary to solve the world hunger problem. In the same time, on the global level, we have very intensive urbanization and transition of the people from rural to urban areas. And at the moment, more than 55% of the global population live in cities. We also have very big problems with pollution. I would like to remind on a artificial plastic islands in world seas and oceans with the surfaces of a few hundred square kilometers. A very concentrated deposition of heavy metals and many toxic and cancerogenic materials all around the world. In the same time, we have, like never in human history, the abundance of material goods, but in the same time, very unequal distribution of global wealth. Some populations in the world live only with $2 per day, and 1.1% of global population possess 60% of global wealth. It's a, for me, very disappointing picture of the modern world. And in the same time, we have some good initiatives. I will say something about initiatives from the United Nations Convention Combat Desertification. It's one of 3 Rio Conventions. Probably all of you heard for United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, United Nations Convention on Biodiversity, and the third one is United Nations Convention Combat Desertification related to soil problems in the world. I was working a few years in the convention, and I will say something about very good initiatives. One of them is a so-called Bonn Challenge. It is a plan to plant about 350 billion trees all around the world. Another one is promoted by the South Korean government, Peace Forest Initiative, and maybe the most important is a project of Great Green Wall to stop spreading of Sahara Desert. The project already started, and when we reach the finishing of the project, it will be the biggest living structure in the world, 8,000 kilometers long and more than 200 kilometers wide. And it will be possible to see it from the space. Okay, it was a kind of introduction, and now I would like to say something about Balkan region and Serbia. We are, the southeastern part of the Europe is one of the most endangered parts of the world regarding climate change. What does it mean? We have very intensive increase of mean annual temperature. For the last 30 years, it's 1.6 degrees of Celsius, and the projection for the end of this century is 4.5 to 5.2 degrees of Celsius. In the meantime, we will have the decrease of the precipitation in the vegetation period from April to September. What does it mean? Drying of forests, significant reduction in production of agricultural goods, and big problems with soil erosion, and much more frequent appearance of, for example, flash floods, and the big amounts of eroded materials from the mountains and from the slopes in the river valleys. I would like to say that Serbia is the poorest country in the region regarding forests. We have only 32% under forest ecosystems of the total territory of my country, and just 5.7 liters per second per square kilometers. It's a so-called module of runoff, and is the lowest value in the region. In the same time, we have a lot of problems with the public health, and I would like to mention that Serbia has the highest mortality rate for lung cancer and the breast cancer. Serbian cities, even Belgrade. I would like to mention, beside the Belgrade, Niš, Valjevo, Užice. A few days in a year. They have the highest concentration of pollutants in the air on the global level. In the same time, political system and economy activities influenced the solutions in the newest spatial plan of Serbia for period 2021 to 2035. And in accordance with a spatial plan, which is the highest legal act for planning and development, someone proposed opening of new 90 mines in Serbia. We are the rich region for some mineral resources, and initiatives for mining are coming mostly for private mining companies from Australia, Great Britain, Canada, and USA. And probably all of you heard for so-called critical minerals for high-tech products, and many European officials, for example, Thierry Breton, which is the Commissioner for Internal Trade in European Union, he speaks about necessity to be independent from China and Russia, and that Europe has to use all its potentials in the member state countries, in the candidate countries, beside the very negative environmental impacts. And what are the critical minerals? For example, gold, copper, lithium, boron, sodium, strontium, zinc, lead, silver, iron, molybdenum, antimony, barite, arsenic. Here in Serbia, we had a big social disturbance and a lot of tensions the last few years due to plan of one of the biggest global mining companies, Rio Tinto, to start exploitation lithium in western part of Serbia. They found at the site very unique mineral called yadarit, but it is the worst form which contains lithium and boron. And if you need to extract lithium from that mineral, it means usage of 1,100 tons of concentrated sulfur acid, destruction of at least 5,000 hectares of first-class arable land, and relocation of about 10,000 people. Serbian government issued so-called investigative rights for almost 200 locations, and it means that the 6% of Serbian territory is under planned mining activities. In accordance with the actual state of the art regarding pollution and public health, it means that we are going to the catastrophe with the new mines, new processes, and new facilities for ore processing. In the same time, I have to say that I'm very disappointed by the hypocrisy from the most developed European countries, because they want to exploit mineral resources in Serbia. They have the same resources, mineral resources in their countries, but they don't want to exploit them in their countries because they take care about their environment. And I will end this speech with some conclusions. I'm not a doctor, but the protection of public health has to be a primary goal above any economical reasons, above any lucrative reasons. And only those projects that reflect a clear public interest should be eligible. And the public interest is only what satisfies the interest of the majority of the community. And I would like to quote Denis de Rougemont. It was a Swiss sociologist and philosopher, and he said that civil responsibility starts with respect for forests. And also it will be very useful to think about Oswald Spengler's observations on Western civilization, and also to think about Arnold Toynbee's observations on our civilizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Istich. How naive was I thinking about you when I prepared questions in case there were none? So I don't know whether we will have to prolong this panel, but I will start with round one. To Professor Maksimovic, do you think that sponge city concept is suitable, or are there better alternatives?
A sponge city concept is initiated in China maybe 10 years ago, which means that when it rains, the cities develop infrastructure retention facilities that will collect this water and, unfortunately, release it at later stage or keep there to evaporate. It's a good concept. It has solved some problems, but unfortunately, not all problems. Cities which have developed sponge city concept still suffer flooding from the higher return period. You do it with a 2, 3, 5 years return period, anything below. So sponge city needs to be added. Some other aspects have to be added. This rain, which is collected, should be used for recycling, for some use as a water resource. At the beginning, it was not. I have several master students from China who have dealt with this. I'm going to Shanghai in end of July to lecture on this for 2 weeks. And sponge city is not universal solution. It does solve some problems, but it has to be combined with other concepts. There is another question about South Korea. South Korea is, I think, can we go up with the question?
Yes, but maybe we should answer one by one, so I will come to that later. To Professor Carvalho, is recycling an answer to future needs for raw materials as pointed in EU guidelines? So you're maybe more concentrated to Brazil, but you are in also, I mean, UK is not EU anymore, so is this a question for you?
For you or for EU? Well, I am not an expert in this field and would be a risk to say that. What I just want to mention is I have seen quite a lot of discussions nowadays on the question of fossil fuel, and especially regarding oil exploitation and etc. But nobody's discussing what is made with oil. Now look at the round where we are sitting, what we are dressing, what are using, how much oil we are using all the time, every day, everywhere. And I think we are sometimes looking at recycling as something that must to be done with some concrete materials that are there as they would naturally exist in the nature, but not. It's a result of processing. It's a result of a long processing. And of course, it's much better to recycle, but it's also, there is a cost for recycling, an economic cost for recycling, an energetic cost for recycling. And why I'm calling energetic aspect here, and probably bringing more to where I am familiar, and in connection to what my friend just said here, is people forgot to understand where energy came from, electricity in particular, where it comes from, this thing that we use all the time. Are we not asking about that? I come from a country that everyone calls hydro plants as clean energy. how many hectares of land had been flooded in order to create a dam to produce a lot of energy that will be used mostly to process bauxite and convert into aluminium in the north parts of Brazil. And it's clean energy, it's clean. What is the result of this dam? The eviction of people, the destruction of biodiversity, the change on cycles of rain because of these big dams and etc. So I think we need to come back to some basics. Instead of thinking too much on recycling, perhaps we should start to think about more in consuming. Do we need to consume everything that we are consuming? I stop here because it's not my field and just provoking questions.
Good. Thank you. To Professor Ristic, what do you think Circle U could do in raising awareness of the pollution role in human health among students?
Before I answer the question, I would like to say something about student activism. It was one of the questions. And when I was a dean of the Faculty of Forestry from 2015 to 2021, I was very happy that the president of student organization was one guy who is sitting here. Nicola, please stand up. He organized with his associates from student organizations more than 50 environmental actions, afforestation, cleaning of the riparian areas, ecological workshops with the kids, help to the people with mental disabilities. And I was very proud on my student organization and especially on this guy who is sitting here. And 2 weeks ago, he organized at one polluted site inside Serbia the planting of 30,000 plantings of Salix feminalis. It's one kind of a willow, and it was one-day action. Okay, let's get back to the basic question. I think that the potential of the Circle U as an alliance and universities and the faculties and institutes inside the Circle U is very big. We can change things. We can influence on public opinions in our cities and in our countries. And I think that we have very strong potential to motivate our students, which are the carriers of idea of environment protection. And I strongly believe in potential of young people. They're clean, they're open, they have a imminent necessity to contribute to the social well-being. And with the support of professors and the faculties at universities and alliance, I think that we can do very precious things.
Thank you, Professor Ristic. To Professor Maksimovic, 2-in-1 questions. Do you think that a project similar to South Korea's one can be implemented in Serbia too? South Korea has one day in the year called Arbor Day, where everyone plants trees. Do you think that it is possible to make an Arbor Day in Serbia too, or in Europe anywhere?
I think Professor Ristic could better answer this question because he's a forestry specialist. My amateur answer is yes, why not? However, I have also some other ideas of how the planting should be done, and I will soon come at public. In my view, every person in his life should mark his major date, birth, christening, going to school, graduating, by planting one tree. In that respect, each of us should plant at least maybe 5 or 10 trees, at least, minimum. Doesn't prevent you from anything else. But there is another South Korean project, which is called forest therapy, which is Korea is the leading country in the world in that, by sending people to spend some time in forests and healing their bodies and minds. And they have huge areas devoted to that. People come with the boats, with the buses, planes, there are hotels and huge area. They have Ministry of Forest Therapy in South Korea, and that is proved to be very healthy on human health without injections and pills and anything, just under controlled guidance of specialists, doctors, spending creative time. In Serbia, there is very embryonic development in Obetska bara like that, and nothing else. We are now initiating this forest therapy as one of the future branch of eco-medicine, combined with some other medicine. For example, it is called hypo-rehabilitation. Children which have problems with the paralysis and so on, riding a horse and then interacting these vibrations between the horse or donkey with the children have recovered some kind of moving legs and are after years, only after a few sessions with the riding horses. So we are now developing such hypo-rehabilitation techniques, probably somewhere near Belgrade and somewhere near Trebinje. And that has been already tried, and people protested that horses are smelly, and they stopped it. But we have to do something similar to that. So there are a lot of potentials. Yes, South Korea is leader. I'm contacting with the university and try to bring some specialists from South Korea who have this Ministry of Forest Therapy specialists to come to train our young people. We can open new businesses in that area. That they have huge business opportunities in South Korea with this. So that answer is yes, we can learn from others. On the other hand, we have also some our problems. Go to Koponik in winter where everything is nice and snow and posh, and but go there now, you'll see disastrous, dirty environment. Go to Rudnice, the whole mountain slope. You have not only creeks, but the whole hill is sewage, raw sewage, gradually melting and flowing down. Smells like hell. Koponik is the same as Zlatibor. Also go to Zlatibor. Go to Divčibare. Disasters. Disasters. All these hotels, motels, apartments built all over the place, all of them like mushrooms, without sewage system, with electricity, even road. Go there now. You see all these beautiful, nice creeks. When I was a student, we went there. Now you go, all these creeks and are flowing raw sewage. Da prostite, ona reč sa G, da je ne spominjem, svud okolo.
Srećom ima stranaca ovdje.
I have started a project in Trebinje where I still think it's possible to prevent this uncontrolled urbanization of nature environment. And that is, Trebinje is also now very popular. People are moving, building houses, and Trebinje has, half of Trebinje has no sewage system, nema kanalizacije, pola grada, and so on and so forth. Go to Srebrno jezero or Gruška akumulacija. Akumulacija Gruž built to bring drinking water Kragujevac, 150 raw sewage inputs from sewage septic tanks ends up in that lake. And that is supposed to be drinking water source for Kragujevac. So the answer is yes, we can learn from South Korea a lot. They are disciplined, in a sense. But then it's not also there are some problems as well.
But not to drink water in Kragujevac.
No.
So, Professor Carvalho, we were taught from the kindergarten here in Europe that Amazonia is actually the lungs of the world. And this next question is actually flying in the air since your first presentation. Is it possible to stop the deforestation of the Amazon forest? Is it possible to add more plants and trees in favelas in order to lower the temperatures? Professor Maksimovic just explained the possibilities of lowering the temperatures in urban areas.
Yes, those two questions are very complex to answer. I would say the first one is countries normally, presidents and governments, they start their political campaign saying how much they will grow the country, how the GDP will grow during their period in term, how they will develop. They talk a lot about progress. Nobody asks them what they mean with progress. Nobody asks them what they mean with development. And when we look at the Brazilian economy, it's an economy mostly based on still on agriculture. it's raw materials. To grow economy in Brazil, it normally implies more agricultural production or raw materials exploitation. And that comes together with deforestation. So is that possible to reduce deforestation? It is, but it's necessary to change a pattern of what we understand as development in the country and in the world in general. Because most of these agricultural products, and especially soya beans, it's not used by humans in Brazil eating that. It's an export product to many countries in the world that are really keen to buy this cheap agricultural product that Brazil makes. And will feed their industries, sometimes food industry as well, but it's feeding other industries. So the pattern of economic development that Brazil choose and is being supported economically by the world because they are buying, it drives to deforestation. So the way to interrupt deforestation, it's not with laws. We have quite a lot of them in Brazil. It's much more about changing patterns of consumption, changing patterns of economic development. And we also never set up targets. We just want to grow, 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 grow. What means grow economically for a country like Brazil? I think if we shift and start to think about growing as how much more forest we add, then it would be much better. Then come to the problem too, that Professor Maksimovic also mentioned here. It's not simply just plant trees and we have the problem solved. Those trees are ecosystems. They are in a very symbiotic relation with the water that's in the region, what the insects and the other fauna that is around. They are not result of a human brain that went there and put the trees and they grow. If we don't create the environment for the jungle to regain the space that was lost, it will be not simply with the human direction action, putting more seeds and trees, that we solve the problem. And that's exactly the answer for the question of favelas in Rio as well. First of all, in that picture I showed you, there is no space to put trees there. The second point is how we deal with that, how we deal with a massive human presence. And if you go to the Amazon, you have the lowest demographic density in the planet. You have 1 inhabitant for 2 kilometers. And then you have the opposite in a favela in Rio. You have 2,000 people in 1 meter. I'm exaggerating, but just to say that the demographic density that doesn't allow as well to do that. So there are big challenges in order to sort these issues of the favelas, because we have a dense populated region. And people living there because they make their lives around that area as well. So I don't have an answer for this last part of the question, but the first one, for me, it's quite clear. We need to rethink the model, the economic model that we implemented in the country. And as you said as well, most of the benefits are not coming to Brazilian companies. Yeah, and that must be said.
For Professor Ristich, what type of trees, leafy or piney, and what acreage is needed worldwide to tackle the future climate change?
If you want to apply effective techniques of afforestation of eroded surfaces or bare surfaces, we have to mix conifers and broad-leaved trees in a sustainable combinations. It means from 500 to 1,200 plantings per 1 hectare, and we need at least 20 to 30 years to have real ecosystem services from the planted trees, at least 20 to 25 years. After 6 years from planting, we have certain positive effects, but the real ecosystem services we have after 20 to 25 years. For example, for Serbia, we have to to forest about 900,000 hectares of eroded land, bare land, and after restoration works, at the moment polluted land. We need in our northern province of Vojvodina to forest about 187 hectares, and south from Sava and Danube, the rest, about 730,000 hectares. And the money amount for that is about 2.3 billion euros, and it's a lot of money. But it means that we can reach that goal under the mid of this century with afforestation of about 30,000 hectares per year. We will spend $2.3 billion, but we will have much more money due to realized ecosystem services. First of all, enriched biodiversity, prevention of floods, sustainable development of rural and mountainous regions, aesthetic values, touristic values, and etc.
Thank you, Professor Istich. One more round. If anybody feels comfortable enough to ask the question without Slido, personal, we are also open to that option. For Professor Maksimovic, 2-in-1 again, are there currently any blue-green projects in Belgrade or Serbia? And also, do you know, can you presume how much money and how many years we need to make Belgrade a sustainable city?
The answer to first question is yes. There are some patchy blue-green solutions here and there. Some people are building green roof just to be green without multifunctionality, or some green walls you see around here and there. But there is no system of implementing as a concept for new developments for rehabilitation of existing ones. We are developing within this F-Polis project a small 1-hectare park near Hotel Yugoslavia in Zemun, but not without tension. City of Belgrade is not giving a proper support to it. City of Belgrade got 1 million euros to do something to help, but they have not yet spent a cent after 2 years. But I hope that will be corrected, and even today we had a meeting. So the answer is yes, but we need a systematic change of planning policies, and not only in Belgrade, in Kragujevac, all other places which is not in place. Still, old traditional urban planning is practiced. Mm-hmm. The other answer, how much money will Belgrade need? Is
and years, yeah, to become sustainable.
Nobody can answer. I would be very silly to answer such a question, because it depends. It is not question how much is the current value of certain variable. It's the trend. Is it increasing or decreasing? Belgrade at the moment, and Serbia as a whole, is in the raising cost with the inappropriate old-fashioned technologies. And that is a big problem. I'm taking just the example of wastewater treatment plant. The whole Serbia had a chance to use European money and implement innovative technologies. They've chosen not to take it, but take a loan from China and implement traditional, old-fashioned, smelly, dirty technology. And that is disastrous, because you are taking loan and our grandchildren will have to return that loan instead of having new technology with much better space. And that is hopefully need to be changed. So if it changes, if it opts for the next generation, new technology, cleaner, then you need much less time and much less money. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, at the moment, we are at the raising cost and raising unsustainability, and that is a governmental policy. It's not something we choose, unfortunately. That's why I told it's pity that ministers have left, and not only these two, but the others as well.
Okay. For Professor Carvalho, how can population in Rio become part of the solution? As with the Amazon, can you envision a business case for the inhabitants? And maybe we can connect that question. No, I'll leave it for the conclusion, actually. So let's stick to Rio.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, then we will touch in another aspect very important for Circle U, that's democracy. I think in the case of Rio de Janeiro in particular, and many other big cities in Latin America or around the world, we are touching here on the concept of citizenship. Most of this population are population that are not really exercising their full rights as citizens of the country. They are prevented from that. They are segregated in the society because of social or racial issues. And they also are victim of one of the biggest problems of the region is urban violence. Those areas in favelas in general, they are either controlled by drug gangs or militias that impose violence to the region and don't allow the full exercise of the rule of law that all citizens can have. So that's a big problem to be addressed together with that. First step is to allow the populations that are living in these areas to really live a full citizen experience. And obviously, once that happens, the solution will come from them in particular, because they are the dwellers. They are the ones that are facing that every day and then don't like what they are seeing in terms of conditions of life, environmentally speaking, especially relating to sanitation, education, water supplies, and etc. So there is no solution that will come from a government sitting somewhere else that is not in dialogue with the local population that will find this, the solutions for that. And the same thing can be said about the Amazonia as well. Sometimes policies about against deforestation, they have been discussed in Oslo or in New York, but without talking to the local population in the Amazonia, without taking into consideration the life of people living there, especially indigenous communities that are the natural owners of that land, if we can put in these terms, but again neglected and prevented of fully citizenship. In the case of Brazil in particular, indigenous people are not fully citizens in Brazil. So I think if we don't solve this issue of citizenship, that's key and fundamental, we will continuously trying to find solutions without really the real engagement of those that are the actors, fundamental actors as the local population.
Okay, Professor Istich, maybe to connect two questions, in which way are scientists or academics included in decision-making in aspects of climate change, negative impacts, and sustainability? And also, how are the UN initiations related to human health in Serbia? Or to translate it all, have you ever been asked as a scientist from the decision makers to give your opinion and have been taken seriously?
I have to say that the Serbian academic community has a very great potential to solve any current problem in our society. I'm talking about Serbian Academy of Sciences and Arts, Serbian Academy of Engineering Sciences, Serbian universities, Belgrade University, Novi Sad University, Niš University, a few world-famous institutes. So we can say that we have a very good concentration of experts in different fields. And very often authorities from ministries and from government, they ask our opinion. But in the process of decision making, we are not involved. And I think it's one of the biggest lacks in a Serbian society, and we need a changing of that process to fully involve experts in decision making on the level of ministries and the government. I think it's a civilization question, and I hope that we will be able as a society to solve that problem in the next few years. And another question, sorry, UN.
Yes.
Yes.
As a political organization, basically, can we implement their initiatives?
United Nations organization in Serbia, they have very positive role and very, very good influence on public opinion in my country. I would like to mention the report from World Health Organization and diseases related to air pollution. And on the basis of a report of the World Health Organization, we find out that more than 10,000 people are dying each year as a consequence of air pollution. We have very good cooperation with the United Nations agencies in the field of reporting and monitoring for climate change, for problems of soil degradation, disaster risk reduction, and many other different fields. So I can say that the influence of UN activities in Serbia is very positive.
Okay, so final questions. We have literally 3 more minutes before the coffee break and a discussion afterwards. For Professor Maksimovic, do you believe that cities can even survive with water waste which they have today?
Very important question. I think generally in the world there is very low awareness of how much damage we as human beings have made to ourselves during the last 200 years since discovery of the steam engine and use of fossil fuels. We have damaged our environment, water, atmosphere, soil, so much that there is a real danger that the whole human civilization to be extinct, like all these animals. It's a real danger. We have to think very seriously and return and make a change in trend in all of these. The depopulation of this area, Serbia, Romania, Russia, the number of people not only living to the Western countries, but also the birth rate is very low, and we are naturally extinguishing ourselves due to white plague, but also generally in the world, there is huge danger that we as a civilization may be extinct. I don't know for how many hundreds of years, but there is a general trend. The only solution to that, we change our mental setup and start thinking, as Professor Carvalho is thinking, consuming less and cleaning the environment and turning to the economic activities which are carefully using natural resources without much fossil fuels, without much all these toxic material and plastic and so on. There is a solution, but we are not yet reached that critical moment in the change of mental set of human civilization. We have a lot of talks like this and talking about it, but real change is not taking place. There are few countries which are making some positive changes in that respect. So yes, there is a hope that we can survive a civilization, but maybe you've seen during the Corona period, some cities when we were not allowed to move, that the animals have come and walked around the areas between the buildings, and they will prevail, replace our stupid human being, the Homo sapiens, or being such a stupid that in 200 years during this period, we have made such an enormous danger to ourselves. We are killing ourselves by all this pollution and not preventing it from happening. So the answer is yes, there is a hope, but it will not happen by spontaneously. It will happen with all of us changing our mental setup and doing something spontaneous. And this is all this blue-green philosophy, a new trend of planning and implementing all these nature-based solutions is the way to go. But it is a long way to go. Everybody has to contribute.
Yes.
Especially young generation. Children in the kindergarten, they are the most promising target group to educate them. That's why we have a small eco-edu hub in this Hotel Yugoslavia. We'll bring the children to educate them how they should teach their parents to start behaving.
Thank you, Professor Maksimovic. Professor Carvalho, for the end of your participation today, which we have exploited to the maximum. Do you see the hypocrisy in green technologies opposed to the devastation of the third world countries, green technologies in the first world countries that are costing the lives and the environment in the third world countries? Congo, cobalt.
Yeah, I think exactly in the continuation of what you have said, I think it's urgent, this change of mentality, because again, living in Europe, I see that so many beautiful things about sustainable life, green energy, etc. It's coming from the coast of many other parts of the world, and a coast that bring benefits that don't want to be shared either. What Risco had said in the beginning, we are living in a period that probably the inequalities haven't been so accentuated in the planet as we are seeing now. So it is very nice to have electrical cars and beautiful streets in UK, while we have famine in countries that are giving raw materials to make this happen. So if we don't change this pattern, it will be a certain inequality that we cannot cope with as human beings as well. And it can be beautiful and good solutions, but just for a few that can benefit and pay for it. And that's again reproducing these inequalities that we should be against. So if it doesn't come for everyone, we should think if it's really sustainable and good for the planet.
Okay, Professor Ristic, to conclude in the same narrative, when we bring this down to the micro plan of the Balkans, which has great biodiversity, geodiversity, how should we exploit that and keep the environment clean and have the economic growth? I mean, I have left the hardest question for the end for you as the host here.
Thank you. In continuation with what Professor Maksimovic said, I would like to know that our civilization is not exceptional civilization. We can meet with the same destiny like former civilizations. First civilizations in the watersheds of Tigris and Euphrates just disappeared in the moment where they were not able to solve the problems. On one side, the growth of population, on the other side, soil and water degradation and environmental problems, and they just disappeared. Also, Roman Empire accelerated the fall due to environmental problems. Crete civilization, also small civilization of Eastern Islands. So we have to be decent as a civilization, and we have to control ourselves and our needs and our necessities, and to very clearly understand that we are not above the nature. Regarding the Balkan region, yes, it is the area of very rich biodiversity, geodiversity, and with a lot of challenges in a actual economy model. So we have to find the sustainable solution. On the example of Serbia, it means to use in appropriate way our big potential in agricultural production. For example, Serbia has 4.5 million hectares of arable land, and the export of agricultural products of about $4 billion. In the same time, Holland, Netherlands, has 3 times smaller surface, 1.5 million hectares, but the export of agricultural products, $80 billion. We have to improve and to develop industries related to agriculture, processing industries. We have also very good base for further development of industry of mechanical engineering in high-tech products. Also very, very good software engineering industry. And I would like to mention very fast growing of our economy related to startups and to innovations. And a very important role is in the science and technology parks, primarily science and technology park in Belgrade, Novi Sad, Niš, and the other Serbian cities. Science and technology parks and innovation activities and startups, for me personally, it's the best way and the fastest way to reach economic growth and to keep the balance in our efforts to protect environment protection and to support the concept of quality public health.
Stitch, one question was left unanswered, so I'm asking you, all three of you, to answer us with yes or no for the end. Do you believe that the Paris Agreement can ever be reached in the best interest of the whole world? Yes or no? All of you? All three of you, in whichever order you wish.
I think yes, but it needs change of mental setup.
Professor Ristić?
It's possible, but on the basis of fair play between countries and equitable distribution of global wealth. It's not possible under actual economy and political circumstances.
Professor Carvalho?
I don't need to say anything after what they both said. I just agree.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being such a great audience today. So, okay, what we have achieved so far is that the coffee break will be until 4:30.
During the coffee break,
here.
we'll discuss with Professor Carvalho the relation between the Rio people and São Paulo. I've done some projects in São Paulo, 20 years, the Paulistas who are hardworking, and Rio people, carioca, they're dancing with the carnival much better. So we will discuss it during coffee break.
Sorry, I would like to invite all of you to visit Science and Technology Park Belgrade Wednesday morning. You will be very satisfied with what will you see there.
Thank you all.
everyone for staying in the afternoon and to attend the second panel regarding the students' entrepreneurship, regarding the green ideas, green innovation, and other. I am very pleased to announce the panelists, and in 2 sentences I will say you a couple of words regarding myself. I think that the majority in this room already knows me, but actually I'm Nenad Zrnić. I also belong to the University of Belgrade, and my narrow field of research is mechanical engineering, and I'm professor at the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering, and currently I'm director of the Innovation Center of the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering, which is the daughter company of our faculty. I have 4 panelists, and I'm going at first to introduce all of them. On my left side is Gordana Danilović-Grković. She graduated at the Faculty of Economics. Later, she worked in the Ministry of Education and Science regarding the as advisor, then in the Agency for Small and Medium Enterprises, and she's the founder of the Business Technology Incubator of the Technical Faculties or of the faculties in the field of engineering at the University of Belgrade. That's happened in 2009, as far as I remember, and the business incubator was practically the beginning of one idea which resulted in 2015, I think, in establishing the Science and Technological Park Belgrade, which is located in the local community Zvezdara. Business and Technological Incubator is the center for many innovative companies, for startups, but Gordana will speak about it a little bit later. Left to Gordana is Professor Avi Mendelsohn. I guess that almost everyone heard his talk in the morning session. Just to repeat a couple of facts, Professor Mendelsohn is professor at the Technion University in Israel, a professor of computer science, and actually he was involved also as principal investigator in industry. He worked for Intel, he worked for a national semiconductor company, and he worked also for Huawei. Professor Mendelsohn is very successful scientist. What is maybe new, I found on the Google Scholar that has almost 5,000 citations, and the H index is 36 as far as I remember. But also, I would just add that Professor Mendelsohn was awarded in 2017 as IEEE Fellow, and he got the Inter Achievement Award. This is highest award in Intel for leading the CMP architecture for Core Duo family, and also he was awarded in 2016 the top 10 patent for Huawei Corporation, because he also worked for Huawei. David Liu will join us online. He's actually in the United States. And David is the CEO and the founder of the Clarity Movement company. This is an environmental technical startup focused on changing how we understand the environment by deploying DES networks for real-time air quality monitoring. Prior to starting Clarity, David was a key leader in the University of California's fossil fuel divestment campaign and worked alongside with the Arctic campaign director at Greenpeace. Fueled by his everlasting passion for improving our environment, namely mitigating climate change, David believes in using data-driven approaches to address the issues arising in global environmental crisis. David earned his Bachelor of Science degree in atmospheric sciences from the famous University of California, Berkeley. Also, the customers of David's companies are located all over the world, in Europe, London, Helsinki, Paris, in the United States, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Denver. Denver is very popular nowadays in Serbia. I don't know why, because of the Denver Nuggets, probably. But this is just the local joke, because we are very passionate in basketball and we are following the NBA playoff now. And our successful player, Nikola Jokic, is in Denver. Okay. But also in Australia, Perth, Sydney, Manila, Philippines, Bangalore, India, even Kyrgyz Republic, and some other locations. And finally, our last panelist is Nikola Popovic, who is a student at the University of Belgrade, Faculty of Forestry. Professor Istrić introduced him in the previous panel, but he will also give some of his experiences regarding the entrepreneurship. And now I'm going to start with the questions. I think that we will have some 2 rounds of questions, and then it will be possible for you to ask questions. We are going to use the same system as in the previous session. I'm in the Slido. So I will get the online questions, but it is of course possible for you to ask the question directly. So the first question to Gordana. Gordana, can you give us some basic facts about the Scientific and Technological Park Belgrade? How many companies, about the profile of the companies, and how do you support young people who would like to become entrepreneurs? What is your experience, and are those people or graduates or they are students? Maybe this is just for the beginning of the discussion.
Thank you very much. This is my great pleasure to be here. Thank you for this invitation and share our experience. Yes, Science Technology Park Belgrade started in 2015, 8 years ago, in partnership between Government of Republic of Serbia, City of Belgrade, and the University of Belgrade, with support of Swiss government. It was first initiative in Serbia according to Technology Park, and our huge obligation to develop everything and set up model and bring good models in Serbia. We learn a lot from European experience in Israel, but it is not copy-paste. It is necessary to develop model appropriate to your local condition. When we started, we had lucky because had huge experience. Professor Zrnić already mentioned business technology incubator. We started that it was same first technology incubator in Serbia 15 years ago. It was really a difficult time in that moment. You could imagine when we speak about today, we speak about our innovations ecosystem in initial phase. You could imagine 15 years ago without any fund for innovation, for startups, for incubator. But before that, I had excellent possibility to visit Israel and pass entrepreneurship program in Haifa, Mashup program, and after that, I came back with awareness that we can do everything here, and started incubator in as a small place in old building of mechanical faculty. Professor Zrnić knows that. And started with only 6 small startup companies. We had 6 offices and one conference room, nothing more. My colleague Natasha Čirović is here. She worked with me. She's professor at Faculty of Electrical Engineering, but we started in that time. And during the time, 45 startups company was established. They are growing very fast. We didn't have more space, of course. And the government, in the meantime, government finished construction for Science Technology Park Belgrade. In 2015, we brought our incubation program to Technology Park and started to develop a very, very huge and complex instrument for technology development of this country. In that moment, nobody believed that it is possible to do that. And our first task is to prove that it's possible, that it's something complex as a technology park is possible to do that in this country, in this region, because there isn't another technology park in that time, only in Slovenia, 600 meters away.
Kilometers. Yes.
Kilometers away. And yes, you are asking about...
You mean the science park in Ljubljana?
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, and you asking me about numbers. For 7 years and a half, more than 180 companies pass our programs and use our facilities to develop their innovative products and services. They employ more than 1,500 people up to date, mostly engineers, and they exported in more than 50 countries. And thankfully that we have now, in the meantime, our government make decision to build 3 more technology parks in different university cities, Novi Sad, Niš, and Čačak. And you're asking me something more about young people, students.
About the young people, are they graduates or students, still students, or?
Yes, many students teams apply for our programs and support. If you remember the famous team and startup company in our previous program in incubator was the students team Strawberry, started in 2009. And up to today, we develop different programs for students. For example, Park Up Intensive, very similar with your summer school for startup teams. But the most important program for us is our pre-seed program. It is first pre-seed program in Serbia. We developed that program because to cover the biggest gap, it is lack of early stage startup financing and lack of business knowledge and entrepreneurial experience in our startup community. That program provides financing up to 20,000 Swiss franc, similar as a euro, and trainings, workshops, of course, and the most important part are mentors. We develop a special mentors network, more than 60 international expert, successful entrepreneurs or investors are part of our network. The young people coming to us with excellent technology knowledge, but business knowledge are missing, and most our support program mostly try to improve the business knowledge.
Sorry, Gordana, one question more in this first round. Are those people who apply for the support, are they from the field of STEM, science, technological, and or they are in the social sciences, medicine, pharmaceutical, engineering, biotechnology?
Mostly from technology, from the Faculty of Technology. We have people, we have companies from agri-food, IoT, energy efficiency, different areas, but mostly technology background.
Okay, thank you for the moment, and I'm going to Avi. We had the opportunity to listen regarding the education, the technical university, and the programs, the curricula, the summer schools regarding students' entrepreneurship. Well, actually, you mentioned that there is some differences in geographical areas. Some people rather prefer to work in some kind of stable conditions. Some of them are ready to go to some new challenges. My question is maybe a little bit tricky. Do you think that the education is the only or the ultimate fact to be good entrepreneur? Because sometimes we can also listen that you are born or not as an entrepreneur. How can you improve your life by taking lectures in the entrepreneurship or innovations and something like that? Or do you need to be born with this talent? Because in sport, you have the talent and you have the work. If you don't have the talent, any kind of work won't help you to become the leading athlete.
Yeah, this is...
Okay. This is a tricky question, but I'll try to manage it. First of all, we know that education is not the only way to become a successful entrepreneur. We have a few examples of people that has some kind of success, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and both of them dropped at early ages at the university, and I think that they did quite well. So this is not the only way. So if you are very, very, very talented, maybe you don't need the regular education way. But I want to take it from a different perspective. And in a recent report from the OECD, they claim that every student that graduates these days will change at least 3 times during his working time, not just the working place, but the working area. Which means that, okay, so you study computer science and you will end up in mechanical engineering or something like that. So what we teach? And I think that the most important part are the basics. So it doesn't matter if you have the knowledge of the right mathematics and the right physics, and by the way, you should know a lot about philosophy as well. I think that then you have all the basics that if you want to change, you can change. But in many areas, it is very, very difficult to change if you don't have the background, the basics, etc.
Some fundamentals, you mean.
Yeah. The problem, on the other hand, is many students, when they listen or when they hear the word innovation and so on, they say, okay, I can be like Bill Gates. I don't need to know the technology. And then they are not taking seriously all the fundamental studies, and later also, if they are lucky and they become very rich at early ages, it's great. At the early age, it's great. They can support other people to do the job. But if they need to make the change, very early in their professional life, they need to drop because they cannot make the change anymore. By the way, connecting to your question, there is something which is not directly connected, but the way Israel become a startup nation, it is a little bit different than what most of people think.
And leader in technology transfer as well. Yes.
Yeah. The real story is that for many years, Russia didn't allow Jewish to leave Russia. So they end up to have a lot of educated people there that could not immigrate. About 25, 30 years, one day they say, okay, you can migrate. So about 1 million of people came from Russia to Israel. That time we were only about 5 million people. So we got almost 1 million people to the country. And that time the technology in Israel was quite mediocre. What you do with so many talented people, most of them are educated, most of them has at least a bachelor or many times doctor in science, what you do. And then the government decided to give them money to open their own startups. So people say, okay, but they will cheat. They say, okay, every startup that will be more than 10 people will get support directly from the government. So, oh, you can open fake startups. So, okay. In less than a year, about 2,000 to 5,000 startups started. Many of them were just fake, but we know 10% succeed. 10% out of a few thousand people is a few hundred people, startups. Now you have a few hundred startups which are successful. About 10% of them become international. and very successful. But this is about 50 big companies. For a small country to become an empire in this technology, 50 big companies are more than enough. And this is exactly what's happened. So now you're in the situation that it is a self-feeding or self-contained system. People that made money out of startups, they invest in other startups. And we are in the situation that these people actually pay for other people to open startups. So most of the students that are coming to universities in Israel want to open startup. So it is not that we need to convince them to do it, but this is their purpose to come in, at least to the technical universities. I'm not talking about people that go to study art, but which is good profession, but they are not opening startups. Exactly. But for the technical, we have a pressure from the student they want to learn it, they want to experience it, and many of them are going and open their own startups.
Yes, I have to say that you're lucky in this case, you know.
Yeah, in that case, right now we are lucky.
I mean, we don't have such experience because probably this is the consequence of the few decades of the socialist or communist system, and the idea was to find the first job and to stay in the same job until the retirement years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's changed last 2 or 3 decades. It's completely different,
yeah.
But that was the idea. So still some people here consider the state job the better job than the private one, or the...
There are population in Israel that also, especially the old generation, or that prefer to stay in the same job forever. When I told my dad that I'm going to change my job every 5 years or so, he said, no, you need to stay the same. Yeah, and he worked for the same company for his entire life.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Avi. Now I'm going to David. David, please, you started business and made some kind of revolution in the business regarding the air pollution. Can you explain us how? And can you give us some comparison? Because your roots are for China. As far as I know, you were born in China. Now you're in the United States. And can you make the comparison between maybe United States, Europe, China, some other countries? Just what is your experience?
Could you clarify the second question in terms of the experience of on the startup ecosystem, or what differences specifically you're asking for?
I mean, the difference in the people's mindset, you know, the idea how to become entrepreneur, do they want to study in order to make their own startups or not, or something like that, you know?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm happy to do so. Yes, so I'm definitely happy to tell a little bit about my journeys for studying Clarity. Again, Clarity started back in 2014 when I was essentially second year in college, study atmospheric science. So the startup, the company was able to start it because one of our innovation program within UC Berkeley, and it's called the Citrus at the Foundry, which is essentially incubator based inside of the campus to help students to commercialize their idea, essentially, and then provide the resources and advice as well as physical space for you to basically work on your idea, receiving advices, and then in addition, receiving funding as well. So we were pretty lucky when we applied because I believe we were probably the only undergrad team that was accepted by the program back then. And our idea was pretty simple. Well, we would like to utilizing the latest technology around IoT and sensing technology to improve the way we managing air pollutions. So when we started the company, we actually didn't really had the implementation of the technology yet. It's purely an idea. But after all these years, I'm really glad to see that idea has, you know, become fruit, and then our current technology are deployed in more than 80 different countries all around the world, and including all the, flagship cities that Professor just mentioned earlier. So, and so one thing I kind of definitely want to mention that this journey also not easy, has been very, very rewarding. Just the fact that you can see and experience this journey of being able to crystallize an idea, in our cases, really just trying to do some good to the world, and then actually making into reality is extremely exciting. So I would say along the journey, our company has grown quite a lot as well. From the beginning, it's just a couple of students of my co-founders, to now a team of 40 people across 8 different countries. It's really, yeah, it's really great to see the team has grown, and also how our product has been adopted across the world. And then in the meantime, we were also able to raise, I think, in total $17 million so far, through multiple of fundraising events. And then it's great to see that the recognition from the VC community as well. So kind of a short comment, short answers for the second questions around what I have seen the differences. So I think culturally speaking, people in US, I would say, may be feeling more open to start their own startup compared to, I think, a lot of Asian cultures. I can't really speak to the European culture per se, but at least a lot of students from my, like kind of cultural backgrounds are really pursuing to, I want to working at Google or at Apple and Amazon, Facebook, and so on. I think that's kind of their dreams, when they're coming into the college. Very few thinking about what they really strive to do, and then what's really the best way to make an impact. For me, the reason I started Clarity was really because of my passion around environmental issue and climate issue. And for me, I think I am a little bit impatient of, like, let's say, a lot of the current way of us doing so. So for me, I personally decided the most effective way to making such impact is to starting my own company and be able to leveraging the capital to making a positive impact to the world. And I think that idea of kind of a social entrepreneurship is becoming more and more, I would say, adopted because of the current, climate crisis. And I'm really glad to see more and more entrepreneurs be able to step up and then really take on to this challenge. So I think that in US there's a really good ecosystem to support entrepreneurs like myself. We have a pretty abundant kind of a financial systems backed by venture capitalists, and the fact that I am based in kind of the Silicon Valley regions is a benefit. However, what I want to say is this benefit is not, kind of geographically restrained. Nowadays, especially since COVID, the VCs are very keen to taking meetings remotely. Last round of funding, we raised the rounds completely through the remote, through Zoom interaction with our investors. So I do think that opens a lot of doors to a lot of foreign companies to be able to, meet the VCs that historically only be able to do so physically in Silicon Valley. And I think that opens a lot of doors to accessing the financing that you needed to grow a company. And I think that, yeah, so yeah, hope that answered the questions, Professor.
Thank you, David. This is perfect for this first round. And our last panelist is the student Nikola Popovic. He's still a student of forestry. But also, Nikola, we heard from Professor Ristic something about your activities. Do you consider yourself as an entrepreneur or not, or just a student, or some kind of mixture between student and entrepreneur?
So, first of all, thank you, University of Belgrade, for such an opportunity for me to speak here in front of all the people from Europe and Circle U Alliance. And before I start, I want to congratulate colleague Nikola Savic and his team for organizing a national conference like this. I know it's been like a few months because he's near me and he was so into this, and now this is the thing, Nikola, and congratulate you. So for the question, I think it's the mix of everything because I tried everything. Here's Miss Gordana. Last year I tried to participate in one hackathon, Think Green hackathon. I entered by myself. I didn't have any team, and at that hackathon, the teams were like, one team is IT, one team is like from a faculty of mechanic engineering or something like that, and I end up with a team with 4 girls from private faculty, from faculty of biology, and no IT sector in that case. So I think we could take the last place in that competition. And what can we do in that team? We don't have IT, and the team was prepared IT or something like that for agricultural needs. So we pitched. I think, good. So it's like a pitch when you talk.
Where?
In Science Technology Park, yes. So it was a great opportunity for me and for all the girls because we learned something new, and we open up to the next level. And Professor Ristic already said, and later we will show the 1-minute video of the seed funding project that we participate in from Circle U, that our colleagues from Austria, from Louvain, and from Pisa University so our colleagues from Austria are with us now, and the colleagues from Pisa and Louvain are online. But tomorrow we will have a workshop with kids from elementary school, Miloš Crnjanski in Čukarica, and it's ecological, educational, and sport workshop. So the main purpose of our action is not on one team like ecology or sport, or it's mixed all together, and the results are a few months ago we planted 30,000 willow trees in Pranjani. That's the place in central Serbia. So 150 people from Belgrade, we managed with the help of Circle U and University of Belgrade and all the other companies to travel. The 150 people with the other locals, it was like 200 people. They worked on, I love to say, they work for free. They don't get any money for that, and they worked on other people's land. to get them better place for living. And when someone is listening for the song, they're crazy, they don't earn any money from that. It's, why do you do that? But when you finish that job and when you go home, you're like a kid. For the next month, you're flying. So that's the experience for our team. And last, for this part of the questions, our organization is, on Serbian is Tvoj život su tvoja dela. On English is like, your life are your deeds, or your life is your action. So we don't use so many words, we are trying to do it. So we like conferences like this when professors are talking, but me personally, I don't like conferences where students are talking. We students didn't learn that much that we can teach others. So stop talking, do something. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikola. And now I'm going to, možemo film u sledećem? Okay. Now I'm going to the second round before the questions. Question to Gordana, what kind of advice the students, the young people often ask you for? So, do you think that we can do more as an institution or as a society in the field of technology transfer?
Yes, okay. Firstly, the young people coming, they're asking for finance, firstly, of course. All of us asking for finance. But our answer is market. Please look at market and try to find a way to develop MVP and show that somebody and find early adapters, and after that we can speak about money, bigger money, because this is pre-seed phase, and it is, oh sorry. And that approach using clean methodology, and that approach is really good and give excellent results. I already mentioned business knowledge are missing in our society among startup founders, and we use all of our activities to improve business knowledge among young people, potential entrepreneurs, startups teams, startup companies, etc. According to technology transfer, yes, dear professor, we can and must do more, much more. There are some good examples, of course. We have in our technology park some companies very good, some of people coming from science and build company. We have cooperation between science and our companies, but it is too small because we have huge potential for that. You can imagine how big our University of Belgrade, with a lot of people in research community. There are a lot of people in research community. There are a lot of methods, prototypes, etc. Stay in laboratory, unfortunately, and we need improve that part. Of course, there was last 10 years we have a little bit confusion about intellectual property ownership, but now we are happy to hear that situation is changing, and we can do really more in technology transfer process. And last month we had study tour. We organized study tour for different organizations, institutions to Switzerland, and so a lot of good examples, and understand that Switzerland do that very good, but last 20 years, not more of that. It is. In my opinion, it is good for us to understand that process and improve in our society. It is not 200 years, but only 20 years. But we learn a lot from Israel, and there are a lot of different examples around the world. And we have to develop our model and put a lot of our research community, give more opportunities to our research community to cooperate with companies.
Thank you, Gordana. And now I'm going back to Avi. Avi, what is your opinion? Should the science be on the side only of the business? In many cases, that means money, or not? Always tricky questions to study. That wasn't my idea at the beginning, but your biography is so impressive, you know, that, and you're experienced, you know.
No, I'm joking because at my home usually my wife deals with, she's scientist by herself, but she's deal with money, usually. So many times I said that the only reason for me to marry is that somebody will take care about the economic. But it is very personal. There are great scientists, people that really like the business. And in general, I think that you need to do what you like and what you good at. Usually you cannot be good on something that you dislike. Saying that, if you are a very good scientist and you are not good in management, you need at least to understand that you are a very good scientist, but you are not good in management. And bring somebody who understands management, maybe guide them or work with him, but let him make the management. The problem is that many times people that are good in one area or they are very good in science or something, they think that they can do everything. And this is usually a good sign for catastrophic. So,
yeah.
This is my short answer.
Thank you, Avi. Thank you. And again to David. David, I read during the weekend one of your interviews, and what I really like, the question was, as an entrepreneur, what is the one thing you do over and over and recommend everyone else do? Okay, your answer was, idea originality is overrated. Execution is the key. Can you explain us? I mean,
yeah.
Then there is no original idea in the world and only a small portion of people that have the idea actually execute on it.
Yeah, so I think like this is a common thing that I encountered in which I think when you first thought about an idea and you were so excited by it, but at the same time, you're also very protective to the idea. I see a lot of kind of students who wanted to start a company, somehow just feeling very guarded of these things they want to start, and they're like, "Oh, would you want to sign an NDA, and then so we can talk about it?" Or and I think that's like I see that pattern happens a lot, and that's kind of behind this, kind of say the original idea is overrated, and the execution is the key. Because I think nowadays, like it's very rare to have any original ideas now, right? With the internet, with even the AI, and now so, you may but in the end, what makes the difference of a real company and startup is someone actually, made that courage and efforts to make that idea into a reality, right? And then that's, I think, was most important. It doesn't matter where that idea is originally coming from, or not. The one who executed it is the one that's make that a reality. So yeah, that's kind of one thing I really want to encourage you for the students who really want to start their company. Is don't be afraid to talk about it, right? So talk with your friends, talk with your family, talk with your professor, talk with your talk with potential investors openly, because in the end, like, first of all, if an idea, it can be damaging to your potential company by just talking about it, then probably that idea is not that good in the first place. And then secondly is that while you are talking about these things and discussing this with other people, you will be able to um, really advance your thoughts around it and then making it more and more closer into a reality. So yeah, so that's kind of my my quote, like what I said behind that quote. Yeah.
And just to add, is it your favorite quote still, this said by John Deere? If you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the whole idea behind our company. Um, I think this applies to a lot of things, but especially the environmental crisis that we are facing today. So because it's such a macro problems, there are a lot of solution being thrown into this problem. But if you can't really measure in numbers like the impacts of each solution can make, and then we don't know how to really can manage the problem. So when we started with working on air pollution, we were really surprised by how lacking of the information on air quality was, right? In a city like kind of I would say San Francisco, which is a 3 million population city, we only have one air monitoring station that's really providing the information about air quality, while air quality is a property that's actually changed from block of street to another block of street, right? It's actually, the research shows that sometimes that difference can be 8 to 10 times of the differences. So yeah, so I think Clarity is really built to filling that gap and providing this localized high resolution data that can be beneficial for the decision maker to improve their quality. And we see that, yeah, like as playing out all around the world right now.
Thank you, David. Miloš, can we see now the film regarding the Nicholas activities? Okay. Because you mentioned it, so.
Yeah.
Is it 3 hours movie or?
No, it's 40 seconds.
Okay, that's better.
Can you play it? I want to be in my seat. It's a short one.
Thank you. And now the questions. I mean, the floor is yours, and we will also have the opportunity to have online questions. Please. Okay, in the meantime, also maybe a question for Avi. I mean, do you think also that the ideas are overrated or not, innovations? I mean, the ideas, I mean, the originality.
Usually there is a big difference between the originality and execution. And we need to distinguish. You said before that you want to listen to professors, and usually the truth is the opposite. We can provide the data, we can provide the analytics, we can provide many good things. But if you look on almost every good invention, it came bottom up. Facebook started because Zuckerberg wanted to show something to his girlfriend. And many other inventions came because of somebody needs something. And to know what is needed many times comes from bottom up. It's not that, on the opposite, when you are well established and you're a professor, etc., you are not exposed many times to the necessary things that need to be changed. And then the stimulus that comes from bottom up is the big things. This is the reason that in my course, actually, I asked the student to define the project. I didn't like to come with a project for them because they know, they listen, they know, they understand the situation. They need to come with the idea what is needed. And if you come with the right idea what is needed, then you can have hundreds of people to implement it, which is okay, but they are not the original. The original idea is the most important part to start something.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So we got a few questions at the moment. For you, Nicola, will you apply for seed funding again? And also, I think that was another question. Let me see. Also, maybe great action of the University of Belgrade students. Will the students from other faculties join University of Belgrade? And what was your motivation? I mean, we have 3 questions, but
Yeah.
we can...
It's like a coffee, 3 in 1.
Yes, 3 in 1, exactly.
So the first question is, sorry. Okay. So
Action seed
funding, yeah.
Seed funding, exactly.
Yeah, if its budget is a little bit bigger. Yeah, I'm just kidding. So it's yeah, of course, because Circle seed funding help us a lot to make movie like this, and this is only a part of the movie, and to make the workshop tomorrow. So the seed fundings are really great thing to first motivate you to continue, because unfortunately without the finances and money you cannot do a lot. You can do it, but it's not so visual and visible in media or something like that. And I saw the questions, can other students from University of Belgrade participate? Yeah, a lot of students participated in that action, but the visibility of the call for the action, it was beneath the radar because we only had 2 buses. So we call it like if you can go with your buddies, with like 5 of you in 1 car, like green transport or something like that, it's okay, but we didn't have so many. We wanted everybody to have a lunch, to have a breakfast, to have water, and to have fun. Afterwards, after our plant action, we had like cultural and traditional songs and talks with locals. So it was like full package. So that's the only reason why everybody couldn't join. But I think in the next actions, we could call everybody and maybe to spread all around Serbian, all around aliens Circular Alliance to motivate other student representatives to do the same thing. Thank you.
Also, Nicola, some more questions. How hard was it to organize reforestation? Do you have some suggestions and tips for other students that want to make projects similar to yours? And also was another one, okay, perfect, by Wiki. Nicola, how will you follow up on what happens with the planted trees? What do you need, what will you do to make sure that the initiative is sustainable? And bravo, of course.
Thank you. So the first and second question are combined, and it's very difficult to organize the reforestation like this, because the hardest part is to find the location in Serbia. In Serbia, we have two public organizations like Serbia Šume and Vojvodina Šume, who are like having the most land mass where you plant the trees. And we couldn't ask them because they have like plans and everything. So we managed to ask locals that they're living near that lake, what was the problem? When there are rainforests and rainforest. When there's a rain, that lake is flooding their land. So the plan with these willow trees is to plant around the lake, so that willow trees in 5 years will be like 3 or 4 meters. The land will be recultivated, and people from who have that willow trees now, they are looking after for them. They can cut them to make biomass to use like green energy, or they can let it grow and make some kind of little forest for them. So the first thing when you organize action like this is to find the location. When you find the location, the second thing is to look for the finances of that. But before everything, you need a good team. So without the good team, I couldn't manage anything. So, and team needs to be mixed, not only one, like all from a faculty of forestry or all from IT. You need to mix all of the technologies and humanitarian work organization. So the motivation for this, I told you, is to when you do something like that, you can just feel it, and also you can make money, but not in the actions like this, because it will be really bad to make money from actions like this. The actions you can make money is to take sponsors to do the organization and logistic for planting for them to do the same action like we did. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Then I can go to David. Again, there was some question. The first one, are you going to do you have some plan to open a startup in Serbia? Okay. But the second question is, as you know that many startups fail within the early years or within the early phase, how do you keep your startup sustainable and thrive?
Yeah. So to answer the first question, do we have plan for Serbia? We would love to expand in Serbia. I believe I was involved in this panel because we started working with a professor in University of Belgrade on the air monitoring projects. So at least on my side, yeah, like we would love to keep expanding all around the world to help the country that's needs in terms of air pollution monitoring. There's a benefits for us is like although we are mainly based in US, we do have the project all around the world. I think that's the benefit of now, like the age of nowadays, that you can run a global business remotely and efficiently as well. And in terms of, it's absolutely true that many startups fail within the first early years. I believe that there's only 90% of startup that started will reach Series A, and then from Series A beyond, it's another kind of I think 60 or 80% that be able to, sorry, only 90% of only 10% of the startup will reach Series A, not the 90%. I think the most important part here is be able to be agile in the and watching for the cash, right? So a lot of us students who started, the company, we're not majoring in finance, we're not majoring in the financial planning. So I think be able to learn how to properly run a company, how to manage cash flow is truly important. And on top of that, I would say is, stay agile. What that means is it will take a while, a lot of the try and fail before you can find a product market fit of your solution. Oftenly, the idea you started with is not the product you end up building. And that's okay. Because in the end, like the product that will be successful in the market is what market wants. So it's okay to keep iterating, keep innovating until you find that initial product market fit to be able to expand your products. Maybe the last part of the sort of advice is always raise more than, what you think you need, because there's so much uncertainty around the early stage of the startup. The more the money you get, the better it is. Don't worry too much about dilutions. That worry just become useless if your company is not even there 1 year later. So once there's an opportunity of funding, get as much as you need to sustain your company.
Thank you, David. Can you tell us, this is also one question, very shortly about the advantages of your air quality sensors, and also one question also to you. It was about the companies, that many companies are not interested in green or sustainable solution. How to convince them that that will be very important, not only in the future, but nowadays as well?
Yeah, so about our air quality sensor, happy to talk quickly about that. So essentially traditionally, the way to monitor the air quality is done by reference grade instruments. That's size of a shipping container, and it costs roughly $250,000 to deploy, and then around $50,000 to $100,000 per year to simply maintaining it. So because of that, the city can only afford a few to be deployed in the city. So our solution, by leveraging IoT and the emerging embedded sensors and so on, we are able to really pushing that boundary of air quality sensing. So nowadays, so the solution we have now is essentially this big, and it's solar-powered building connectivity, and it can measure air quality at a fraction of the cost of the reference sensor can do. So now, like for our customers, instead of spending $250,000 buying that instruments, they can deploy hundreds of our sensors all across the city to gather the information about air quality and make a decision around that. And I think the second, what was the second question?
Good question. The second one is about the companies and how to convince them, and the first one was regarding the advantages of the air quality sensors. I mean, what was the advantage of your product?
Yeah, and then the second is many startup and a company are not interested in sustainable business development. I don't think that's true. So first of all, like, yeah, it's absolutely true that not everyone is going to buy in your product's idea and buy in your mission. It's okay. Find the early adopter, find the innovator that willing to try out your solution, try out your buying your solution, right? So that's very important to find that audience, and that audience may not even in your same region or same countries. When we start a company, the first customer we ever signed is actually in Europe rather than in US, and that's fine. Because eventually you will experience this adoption curve after the innovators, there will be a much wider explosion, adoption of your products. And I think in sustainability in general, like, if anything, the hardest field or the hardest funding field in the VC right now is around climate and obviously AI. But climate is extremely resilient in this kind of startup financing down run. I would say, if anything, we see explosion of climate tech related fundings in the venture capital space. I believe from 2021 to 2022, there was 80% of increase of funding, and now we are seeing close to $100 billion of venture capital money in this space. And remember, that's majority of them are not deployed; they are all dry powders. So so I really disagree that many are not interested in system business. If anything, that is the future, and that is where also the funding is as well.
Okay, thank you. Now one question for Gordon, and I think that we are very close to the end of the panel because it is 5:45. So Gordon, can students join a startup within the park? And the question is, what are the conditions to join a startup? Will there be any more projects that promote student entrepreneurship?
Yes, of course, you can join to our startup community. It depends of you want. Firstly, if you want to work with startups, please come send email or etc. See them on website. But I think that that question is more deeply because about entrepreneurship promotion. We are doing not only entrepreneurship promotion. We are going really deeply to give a lot of lectures, a lot of trainings, a lot of Nicola mentioned one hackathon. For example, as a student, you can apply for our next Park Up program for 2 months in July. It will be in July. Please look it and join us.
Thank you.
And may I ask you something, David and Avi, to join our mentors network and help us and share with our startups your experience and knowledge, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think that we can end. Sorry, Nicola.
So maybe when you're done with the panel, I just wanted to propose to invite Björn for the...
Yes, that I would like to say, because I'm very sorry we have still a few unanswered questions. We answered the majority of them. There was a huge quantity of questions, but it is now 5:45, and I would like just to give you an opportunity to redress before the dinner. But actually, I would like to ask Björn to summarize the whole day, but please give a big applause to our panelists. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I will do this extremely quick, as I know that I'm the only one between you and drinks and dinner. First of all, let me congratulate the University of Belgrade with a very well-organized conference so far. I think this, the whole day has been very inspiring for us all. So congratulations to the organizers, and also congratulations to the university, as I understand that they are in the 250 year celebration. 15 celebration is underway. Okay, summarizing the day. For me, there are 4 take-home messages. I think we started out the day with one of the grand challenges, talking about Amazon. We often think about grand challenges in health, energy, but suddenly we are introduced to a specific geographical area. But that geographical area is also one of our grand challenges. It affects us all if we don't solve the problems that are found in the Amazon. And that relates to my first take-home message. There is this saying, I think among environmentalists, think global, act local. And I think what we also heard today is that maybe we need to change that slogan a little bit. Think global, but act in networks. And I think we heard a lot of presentations and arguments for how we actually need to work together, not just locally, to solve some of these problems. The second take-home message was related to the presentation that Avi Mendelsohn had today when he told us about his experience also in student innovation. And I think that there were some really key messages coming out there. Often we think of innovation in a very narrow term, but I think if I remember correctly, you had this idea that you should think about innovation for society, which I think is a key word and a key insight. And then we are perhaps expanding the whole concept of innovation to talk about social entrepreneurship, which is something I think also would resonate well with many of the students that perhaps feel that innovation, oh, that's for someone else. But social entrepreneurship, that's something we can do. And we heard also Nicola, and we saw what he've done when it comes to the tree planting and to organize it. That's social entrepreneurship. That's innovation. That's what we are looking for. But innovation, and this goes for my third insight and take-home message, innovation and independent activity is not enough. We need some planning. We need to have elements working together, as we heard in the first panel. You can't just run around planting trees I mean, you have to plant the right trees for the right purpose so that they actually can build ecosystems. And we need many different kind of ecosystems for different kind of solutions. So that is, I think, also a key insight, that planning is actually something that we are desperately missing in our society. And I think this is also one of the contributions of universities, that we could contribute to this kind of planning, to have a look at the wider context and not only looking for the small technical solutions. And I think the last session also echoes my fourth insight and fourth take-home message for today. It's about the public-private partnerships. I think if we are to solve some of these problems, we can't look at the private sector as the problem and the public sector as the solution. We need to find ways to work together to solve the problems. And one of the last questions that we heard here, I think, was interesting. You know, are private startups, are they really interested in going for green solutions? I think so. And I totally agree with David when he said that, yes, it depends a little bit on also what kind of profits and margins that we are talking about. And I think this is where we also need the public and private partnership, that we also need to to change some of the parameters of capitalism. We know that capitalism works, but we need to change it so that there is actually a sustainability dimension also found in the bottom line here. This brings me back to Circle U. And I think Circle U is actually a network, an alliance, one of these social constructions, because that's what we are. We are a social construction. We are a virtual organization, bringing together universities from different countries, bringing together public and private organizations to find solutions to make the world a better place. And I think today we've talked very much about climate. We have 3 knowledge hubs in Circle U. We have global health, we have climate, and we have democracy. And I think what we also have learned today is how intertwined these elements are to find sustainable solutions. It's not enough to focus just on climate. We need to see also how it affects global health and how we can use democracy, engagement, involvement to find the social solutions that are needed. So congratulations again to the university and to the organizers, and I look forward to the dinner. Thank you.